I appreciate everybody being here this morning. I am aware of the concerns that the community has had due to the fact that we have had 2 police-involved shootings in Norfolk since Friday, and then an additional police-involved shooting in Virginia Beach overnight. I have received questions from members of the community. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I will try to set the record straight as much as I can, consistent with my ethical duties, and explain what the processes and procedures are from here. I also want to address why I have grave concerns that we will be seeing more of these incidents in the future rather than fewer. To begin, the Norfolk police were involved in a police-involved shooting on Friday near Little Creek Road and Sewell's Point Road. I responded to the scene as I always do for police shootings, as did the Virginia State Police. The same for a police-involved shooting that happened early Sunday morning at an apartment building on Monticello Avenue. Once again, I responded and walked the scene, and the state police responded. Let me be clear. Nobody is dead. I have had people ask, nobody is dead. We are very fortunate that no police officers were harmed. Nobody was physically hurt on the police side, and we are also fortunate that both of the individuals involved in the shootings in Norfolk have lived. They were wounded, but neither of them is dead, and it does not appear as if either of them is going to die. That is good news, and very important for everyone to know. The police have also charged both of these individuals. I want to reiterate that these are unrelated incidents. They have nothing to do with one another. They are unrelated. But a woman was charged with brandishing a firearm or object that appears to be a firearm in the incident from Friday. My office has long staffed brandishing cases, even though they are misdemeanors for which we receive no state support. We will be involved in the prosecution of that case. In the incident from this Sunday morning, the police have charged the surviving individual with reckless handling of a firearm and illegally shooting a firearm within the Norfolk city limits, both also misdemeanors. And I will staff that case. The police are under no obligation to consult with me about any charges that they bring. However, I appreciate the fact that they did consult with me on these 2 cases. The evidence at this point does not support any charges other than these. So if additional information comes to light, we will re-examine that position. These appear to be the most serious charges available. I cannot speak about the facts of those 2 cases because each of the accused in those cases has a right to a fair jury trial, and it is unethical for me to do anything to interfere. It would also be immoral. So that is as much as I can say about the facts. What I would like to talk about is my role and the state police's role and the Norfolk police's role. I am not an employee of the police. The police are not employees of mine. We are in separate and independent areas of authority. And I am a minister of justice responsible for police accountability as much as I am for public safety, because those 2 things go hand in hand. The Norfolk police has made a decision that they do not have to. Every local police department or agency has the option to decide how they are going to investigate use of force incidents. I am pleased that for many years preceding my taking office, that the Norfolk Police has referred their police shooting cases to the Virginia State Police, with whom I have a long working relationship. The state police have specialists who investigate officer uses of force and officer shootings. The different areas of the state do it differently. I'd like to point out that since people have asked, I cannot investigate these incidents myself. There are no in-house investigators in the Norfolk Commonwealth's Attorney's Office to do these investigations, and as it is, the expertise belongs to the state police. I have seen their work. In instances like we've had over the last few days, where the individual shot by the police survives, the Norfolk police are responsible for the criminal investigation relating to the surviving individual. They are the police agency on that. The state police put together a report for my review to determine whether there are any criminal charges to bring against the officers. I will say that I always keep an open mind about these cases. There is a reason that I wait for the state police reports, but as a general matter, if you look back at police shootings that have been resolved in Norfolk and ones where the surviving individual has been charged, you can draw conclusions if the surviving individual is charged. Because oftentimes, if there is an exchange of the use of force, only one side has committed a crime. I will not prejudge anything that's happened over the last few days, but I will note that we agree with the charging decisions on these two individuals, and we will proceed with those cases. My review is limited, as is the state police's. Since I don't work for the cops and they don't work for me, my only portfolio is to determine whether the police officers have committed a crime. It is that sole question. And I have pledged that if a police officer commits a crime in one of these situations in Norfolk, I will indict them and I will personally take the case to court. That is part of the reason I go to the scenes, is because should I have to do that, I want to be the prosecutor myself and I want to have seen the scene myself. I've also said that if the person is deceased, I will hold a press conference if I'm not charging and will explain my conclusions. For obvious reasons, if there are charges pending against a surviving person, I cannot do that. And we speak in court in the course of those trials, and there will be an ultimate review at the end. People have asked me, what about policies, procedures, training for the police department, protocols, escalation, de-escalation? Those are not part of my portfolio. The ultimate responsibility for training and policies and procedures falls to Mayor Alexander and the council and their directives to the city manager and from the city manager to the chief of police. Civil lawsuits against the police department, not my portfolio, either to file or to defend. Private individuals would file. The city attorney, who is an employee of Mayor Alexander and council, is responsible. It is also generally not appropriate for me to comment on policies and procedures because it's not my job and not my lane. I don't like other people telling me how to do my job. I don't tell other people how to do their job. All of this said, each of these situations is a tragedy. Each of them is a tragedy. Speaking generally and not about these two cases, I can tell you that in my tenure as Commonwealth's attorney, the police-involved shootings and uses of force that I have seen have fallen into two categories. Dangerous and wanted individuals who do not want to go to jail and want to shoot their way out, and mentally ill people who are armed. We have an epidemic of mental illness in the United States, and we have an orgy of gun ownership and irresponsible gun ownership that puts guns in the hands of mentally ill people and that makes them easily available for theft or black market purchase. In any situation where somebody is armed, there is a greater risk of something going bad. And in the cases that I have cleared over the last few years, you know that often the factual scenario is mentally ill individual is armed, does not obey the commands of the police to disarm, makes a threatening move, or starts to shoot and gets hurt or killed. When I say that I am worried that this is going to increase, that is because of the Trump administration and the Trump administration's enablers. We do not have enough mental health care in America, Virginia, or Norfolk. We do not have the mechanisms to get people the treatment that they need. What we see then is that the largest mental hospital in every city and county in America, including in Norfolk, is the jail. The jail. Because people are not caught upstream. They are caught by the time they have either been a victim of a crime or they have committed a crime themselves. And just today, we are starting to see the outlines of multi-billion-dollar budget cuts coming from the federal government. The federal government has already harmed grants having to do with substance use disorder and homelessness, and we are probably about to see a multi-billion-dollar cut to the Medicaid program, which is the largest provider of insurance and health care coverage to mentally ill people, especially the ones we see in our courthouse. This is not a federal issue. This is deeply local. We cannot afford to stand silent as the Trump administration not only dismantles the rule of law, but dismantles all of the things that I talk about in these cases and in other cases, which is that the criminal justice system is where the symptoms pop up, not where the problem lies. I want to tell you that things will get better. I do not know that they will. Police officers have to make individual decisions in the heat of the moment in individual cases. We don't ask them to get themselves killed. We've seen that in Virginia Beach within the last few months. What we do ask them is to do the best that they can. But we should have a government, a federal government that supports mental illness treatment, responsible gun ownership, responsible gun safety legislation, so that fewer mentally ill people are on the street and fewer of them are armed. That is what we need. And I'm here to tell people what they need to know and not what they want to hear, which is that if we see the federal government assail the healthcare system like they've assailed everything else in American life, with Trump and his enablers, it's getting worse. I will be here. I will make the decisions that I need to make. But if we want to see less of this, we need more investment from the mayor and City Hall in mental illness. We need a Youngkin administration that is prepared to stand up for health care, and we need a federal government that is not going to take away the guardrails that we need. I appreciate everybody's time and attention. I am prepared to answer questions as best I can, consistent with my ethical duties. She's expected to survive as best I understand it. She was in stable condition last I checked, which was yesterday.
I know you said this woman has been charged and then the other person has been charged as well. Are you releasing their names, or do you know who they are?
The police, I believe, have released the names of both individuals.
Yesterday I was going around on Ramin Street and I was asking people, how do you feel now that this has happened in their area? A lot of people told me that they feel unsafe living here in Norfolk. How do you respond when you hear a statement like that they feel unsafe living here, especially in such a populated area?
We have to remember to pay attention to not the weather on an individual day, but the climate. Crime in downtown Norfolk has fallen effectively to zero over the last few years, especially compared to where it was during COVID. Crime in Norfolk is down significantly. Homicides in Norfolk are down 42% in the last 3 years. Violent crime is down 40% in the last 3 years. Property crime is down 27%. If you ask people whether they felt more safe in 1998 than now, they'd probably say 1998. We had almost 100 murders that year. We're on pace to have murders in the 30s this year. Though I can understand how a particular high-profile incident will make people feel nervous, but it is the responsibility of elected officials like me and like some others not to stoke that fear, but to offer people facts and to say, we know this was terrible. One crime is one crime too many. But if you're looking at the bigger picture, all of the numbers are moving in the right direction. Norfolk is safe. It is safe.
Anything else you wanted to add or talk about
We've seen this happen over the last few years, where we've had no officer-involved shootings, and then all of a sudden there might be a couple on top of one another. What I'll say is that it's statistically random. These were two completely unrelated incidents. If the facts had been different, even slightly in some instances, an incident that turns into a police shooting could be effectively a non-incident. And I should add, by the way, that since you've asked, none of the officers are the same officers either. When an officer is involved in a shooting and has pulled the trigger, the Norfolk Police Department puts them on administrative duty at a significant financial cost to the officer, who is then unable to work part-time work. The officers you see working at Walmart or at Harbor Park or at Chrysler Hall are almost always working in a part-time capacity. Those officers lose those opportunities until they're formally cleared. Though it's not the same group of officers, they were two completely different police precincts, two completely unrelated individuals who knew nothing of each other. They have no more in common to do with each other than they have to do with either the murder of the two officers in Virginia Beach some months ago or the shooting of the individual by the police officers in Virginia Beach last night. Thank you.